Record 34, Side 1, Number 34, Lesson. The 34th Lesson. Practical Section. Agriculture in Britain. Britain has, since the beginning of industrialization in the country, become less and less an agricultural nation. However, though something like only 4% of the people in civil employment are engaged in agriculture, that represents about 1 million workers and makes it one of the most important single industries. The British farmer either owns the land he farms or rents it from the landowner. There are no longer many great private landowners, like those of the past, who allow the peasant to farm a part of his land in return for certain services and a specified portion of his crops at harvest time. But the Crown, the Church, and some state or local organizations and others have large land investments, and where these are not directly employed by the proprietor, they may be leased for farming. About half of the farmers in Britain own the land they cultivate, and the form of farming adopted is usually general in nature. It takes a great deal of capital to specialize, whereas a little dairy farming, rotation crop growing, as well as a small herd of beef cattle and the rearing of pigs and chickens, can all be run together by the farmer and his wife, with the help of a few farm labourers who today are not so common and must have a certain amount of practical knowledge of tractors and other mechanical farming equipment. In certain zones, particular importance is given to one group of products, and naturally this depends to a great extent on the type of country. Arable crops are grown in the eastern part of England and in southeast Scotland. Further south, still on the east side of the country, there is a predominance of potato and vegetable farms. Between these areas we find large tracts of land which, though partly arable, are important for rearing and fattening cattle. The southwest of Scotland is principally a dairy farming region, and in the hilly areas of Great Britain there is extensive sheep rearing. In other parts of the country, dairy farming, milk, butter, eggs and cheese, is very common. All the food that can be produced, even with the most modern machinery, is not, however, sufficient to meet more than half the food requirements of the population of over 52 million people. Even during the last war, when tremendous efforts were made to close the gap, not merely by rationing, but by greater production and the placing of permanent grassland under the plough, Britain's farm products alone were not sufficient to supply all our needs, even of basic foods. Production costs, not all represented by increased wages, are continually rising, and, as in most civilized countries today, the farmer must receive assistance or encouragement in the form of grants to stimulate production rates and quality in the various fields of agriculture which the government, in collaboration with the agricultural organizations, thinks fit and proper to make. What kinds of crops does the British farmer grow? How does he rotate his crops? Well, the commonest field crops are clover, wheat, roots, this comprises all root crops, and barley, and these are rotated on a 4-year basis. In the past, before science took an active part in agriculture, a 7-year rotation of crops was considered advisable, but now that is thought too long. The order and type of crop appear more important today than the period of time intervening between, say, one wheat crop and the next. It is difficult to offer comparable figures that will be comprehensible to every foreign student of English, but some percentage figures regarding agricultural production might give a definite picture of one side of the economy of the British people. Wheat produced in Great Britain represents only 24% of the nation's needs. Oils and fats a mere 12%. Butter, which is a commodity widely used in every British home, represents only 9%. Less than half the cheese eaten in the country is home-produced. Actually, Britain is self-sufficient only in fresh milk and very nearly so in eggs and potatoes. Home-produced fresh meat represents over 60% of requirements, the remainder coming from the Commonwealth and South American countries. From the latest figures available, although most percentages have dropped from the 1945 levels, they are still better, in some cases very much better, than pre-war percentages. Taking the pre-war average for agricultural production in the United Kingdom as 100, we have a current figure of 162. That is certainly real progress in a country which, like many others in Western Europe at least, has long suffered from a shortage of manpower.
Side 2, grammatical section. Words only singular or plural. There are in English a number of words with peculiarities which are worth noting. Some, although singular, translate plural meanings in other languages. Others are only plural. Again, there are nouns with 2 plurals, each having different meanings, and a class of words of foreign origin which have retained their original plural form. Let us look at the singular words first. The following are always singular in English, so when they are used as a subject, the verb will also be singular. It is important to remember this, but sometimes it's not enough to remember the verb. There may be qualifying words referring to the singular English subject, which in your language would be expressed in the plural. Here is an example. The information was correct in its entirety. Very often, the foreign student will remember that information is singular, so he therefore uses was, not were. But that is only half the story. The possessive adjective also refers to information, so must be in the same number singular. It is in these agreements that mistakes often occur. Watch them carefully. Here are the more common singular words which do not have a plural form: advice, billiards, business, costing, dancing, fighting, flying, furniture, hair of the head, hunting, information, knowledge, luggage, mathematics, news, nonsense, physics, politics, progress, shipping, shooting, shrapnel, sixpence, wealth. The nouns ending in ICS and referring to the name of a science always take a singular verb. Abstract nouns, when used as such, have no plural form. When used in the plural, their meaning is changed. Materials and things which can only be measured, not counted, have no plural either, except when it is intended to specify different types of the same material. Beauty is only skin deep. The beauties awaited the judge's decision with impatience. Knowledge is available to all. The knowledge that his car had been stolen came as a great shock to him. Good cheese is made from the best milk by special processes. Many of the cheeses that were traditionally made by farmers are now factory produced. Wine is delightful with a meal. The best Italian wines are known all over the world. Now let us look at some common examples from another set of words, this time with only a plural form. When a singular form is used, the meaning is different. Airs, attentions, bearings, belongings, clothes, colours, comings and goings, contents, customs, damages, dice, effects, feelings, goods, irons, means, pliers, respects, sands, savings, scissors, shorts, spectacles, spirits, sufferings, surroundings, thanks, travels, trousers, winnings. Some of these, such as colours and spirits, have two plural meanings, one of which corresponds to the singular meaning of the same word. Others, such as irons, spectacles, and sands, have no singular equivalent, so it is more important than ever to remember the S of the plural when necessary. Here are a few examples. His attentions were not at all appreciated by the young lady. The children find it difficult to give their whole attention to what the teacher is saying. After the race was over, he collected his winnings from the bookmaker. Winning is not the most important thing in life. It is enough to have done one's best. That poor woman lost all her belongings when her house caught fire and was burned to the ground. His belonging to the club does not give him the right to dictate to the other members. The last category to be considered in this lesson is that of words which, though in current use in English today, have not yet acquired an English plural form. In some cases, only the original plural exists, while in others there is also an English form of plural with s or es. One or two examples are given of words which have not been completely anglicized. Appendix, appendices, dilettante, dilettanti, memorandum, memoranda, index, indices, bandit, bandite, basis, bases, radius, radii, soprano, soprani, crisis, crises, formula, formulae, madam, mesdames, analysis, analyses, phenomenon, phenomena, axis, axes, oasis, oases. Some of the above have a completely anglicized plural which is in common use. Appendixes, formulas, memorandums, bandits, sopranos. However, it will be found that the anglicized plural very often has a different meaning from that given to the original language one when dealing with scientific names coming either from Latin or Greek. Here are a few examples of this last category of words retaining their foreign plurals. The appendices will be found at the end of the book, divided according to subject. The lawyer sent a memorandum to his client on the subject of the litigation. Crises, whether political or military in nature, appear to be part of the life in some South American countries.